Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we got a returning guest, a fan favorite, and an Occult Reject favorite. We got Ike Baker with us tonight. Before we introduce him, let me introduce the other rejects. We got Judith the Loon back on again, second time today. Thank you so much, Judith. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about today's episode, the second episode today. And you could catch me at The Loon on YouTube and on X.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I figured this might be a little bit more up your alley, kind of Golden Dawn-ish type style stuff with Ike, so hopefully it should be fun. And my man, Jin, what is going on, sir? How are you?
What is up, boss, Mr. 93? So thank you so much. Shout out to Ike. Obviously, he is a guest tonight, but we just did an episode. So it's not ready, but in a couple weeks it will be. So episode 88, look out for that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, well, you got 93. So everybody gets their magic number. But first, before that, I'm dropping 2 episodes with Sachki. I've promoted it before. It's happening. It was like an 8-hour recording. It took me like several days to edit and sort of work through, figure out what was going to go on with that. But that's going to be really cool, I think, talking about AI and Kabbalah and crystals as in crystal quantum computing, not crystals as in, collecting magic rocks, but maybe a different kind of magic rock. So if you're interested in those kinds of things, check me out. Threshold Saints, Apple, Spotify, and of course my Substack, thresholdsaints.substack.com. You can follow me on X, Twitter at Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn. Of course, you can follow us at the Grey Lodge at thetruegraylodge.com, of which Matt Murrah is our webmaster and also our YouTube social media coordinator. So obviously like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And we talk about pretty much meta magic, meta Kabbalah, speculative Kabbalah, speculative Kalachakra, and speculative Gnosticism. And our next episode will be on February 13th, Will as the Cause of Fire, an exposition on Gnostic Seth. Seth, not Set, Seth. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate it and really looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for everything you do, too, out there. Appreciate it. And my man, Brandon, what is going on, sir?
Sup, Nick? Hello, everyone out there. Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This is going to be great. I love Ike Baker. I love listening to him talk about his deep knowledge of things, and so I'm very excited about this evening. Make sure everyone goes over to Magus in the Media on YouTube, where I will always tell you we are looking for the myth, the meaning, and the magic in the mundane in this strange and crazy world. Also check out my X, where there's a lot of people who need to be laid the smackdown on them these days, as well as go over to the Instagram, because this is where the discourse is happening. Let's do it.
Thank you very much, sir. Always appreciate you joining us, Brandon. And last but not least, my man, Matt Moore. What is going on, sir? How are you? Thank you for making it. It must be like ridiculously late at this time, too, for you.
What is up? It's 9 p.m. now, so it's not that late.
Really?
It would be super late. Yeah, because the member's over now still. So very glad to be here as always. Really good to speak with all of you, and also with Ike, which is coming more often now. And yeah, I mean, you can always find me on all my socials, like I say, at MattMara19. That's going to be Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, maybe some other place. And today, I'm not going to promote my Kabbalah website, which you all know, but I'm promoting a new project being worked on, which is called Gamu. So it's going to be an esoteric social platform. I'm really fucking super extra mega excited to do it. And you can actually join the waiting list in entergamu.com. That's GAMU, entergamu.com. You can join the waitlist there, and when it's ready, it should be pretty quickly, at least the basics of it, you're going to get notified. So yeah, let's see.
Awesome. Thank you very much, man. And I'm really glad that you're able to make it. And finally, to the guest himself, Ike, please let everybody know what your deal is. Whatever you want to plug, wherever they can find your work, please let them
know. Thanks. I'm really happy to be back on with you guys. This is always a lot of fun. My third time on, probably in like a month and a half or something.
Sorry, I bugged you.
No, it's awesome. I love this. The format that you have here is really unique amongst, well, I should say successful podcasts in occultism and esotericism and magic and all that stuff. You just get a bunch of people in the room or really in their own separate rooms and then bring them together and just let the sparks fly. So it's a lot of fun. I'm glad to be here. I am Ike Baker. I am a man of many affiliations. I run the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn Temple in North Carolina, out of Asheville. I'm a Freemasonic historian. I wrote A Formless Fire in 2024, which is about the history, theory, and practice of the Western esoteric traditions from antiquity until about the 19th and early 20th century. The book we're going to talk about tonight, I wrote in 2025. I published it with Lou Ellen. It's called Aetheric Magic, and really excited to talk about that and everything else. Anybody wants to find out more about the podcast and the YouTube channel that I run and host, Arcanum, ARCANVM. You can check it out at my website, ikebaker.com, IKEBAKER. I've got everything, my blog, my podcast, my documentary style presentations, and what have you. So check that out, and I'm happy to be here.
Oh yeah, no, thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate you coming on. And if people haven't checked out his stuff, if you're into this show because of the, the deep dive, well, not everything's always deep dives anymore, but if you're into the in-depth conversation that we have on topics, definitely go check out his channel. He goes far beyond what we talk about. So he's got a plethora of definitely intense stuff to listen to, my opinion. So, Ike, thank you very much for joining us. And yes, the book Aetheric Magic. First question I wanted to ask you is what would etheric magic mean to you?
Well, it's right out of the gate. It's a confusing term for most people, but so my primary goal in the beginning of the book, at the outset of the book, is to define my terms. I find generally that in magic and the occult and increasingly outside of it, we're using words. We have a common vernacular, but we're defining these things. There's different shades of meaning depending on the person and the community that they came up in. For instance, a lot of people might think I'm talking about the Enochian ethers when I talk about etheric magic, right? But that's not what I mean to really discuss. I based it off of the really Platonic traditions word for the fifth element, which was ethera. Okay, and it basically, it contained other elements. It was a quintessence of sorts. So I wanted to systematize that term because we don't really have a satisfactory term for that in the West, right? And we'll go into this. Obviously, I talked about how I'm in the Western esoteric traditions, but I went to school for Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and I studied meridian theory. I studied qigong privately and in school, and so I have a lot of experience on both sides of the fence. And what I saw was that in the Eastern systems, there was a much more developed and systematized body of energy work. Okay, and they had discrete terms for it, like chi, prana, so on and so forth. Ki in the Japanese tradition, reiki. So they had terms that, right, in Anglophone languages, it's kind of like, words are a little bit more specific. There's less of a broader interpretation. And for instance, the word chi, or let's say the pictograph for chi, in Chinese is it actually resembles. It's supposed to be the vapor rising off of a pot of rice, and this is supposed to communicate breath, vapor. But it's also, as we know, universal life force energy. It's also used to describe something's inherent nature. So you say, why does water flow downhill? And a Taoist would say that is its chi, that is its nature. So there's all these, there's this wonderful way of communicating in other languages, but in Anglophone languages, we strive for precision. And especially in discourses like this, I wanted to facilitate that in the Western tradition. We have the term energy work, right? That is that's extremely vague. I wouldn't even say that it's broad. I would say that it's vague, because if you go and look at the scientific definition of energy, the definition is the ability to do work, which effectively tells us nothing about it. You know? So I don't know. Is it really energy? I can't say, because I'm not a scientist. My area of expertise is in this stuff, but I will say that it's best characterized as a radiant luminosity, this ether, this quintessence, this chi that runs through and around the organism, that we have no choice but to talk about in terms of energy, because it's the way that most people are going to be able to grasp onto this in the Western system. So ether is my term in an attempt to systematize a definition for this universal life force energy, specifically in this Western context.
Thank you. I actually fell into the whole thing of thinking it might have been a Nokia Magic myself when I first heard the name of the book. And then I was like, I don't know, let me go check before I just assume. And I was like, it's not. So,
yeah, no, I mean, I'm not going to teach people how to scry the ethers. I took,
I was kind of surprised. I was like, I'm actually surprised you would have put that out.
I can't do that. I've taken oaths.
Yeah. Good for you, man.
Hey, Ike, do you think then that, in the more of the Qigong sense, when you speak to Qigong masters and Kung Fu guys, they talk about the bioelectric body, right? And so could you then superimpose a very similar idea of Aether with like the bioelectric field that moves through all things?
You know, the thing is, in terms of Qigong and Taoist masters, that's a very, very new thing to call it that, right? Because for the millennia that they had this tradition, they didn't know about bioluminosity or bioelectricity. I talk about it. I try and talk about it. I would say that there's various shades of density of energy. Energy is it's all the same thing. It's just depending on its state of vibration, it has different ways of interacting with itself and other things, right? So like it can be electricity or it can be magnetism, depending on what end of the spectrum it's on, right? We call that electromagnetic spectrum. So, but it's all energy, which we have a hard time defining outside of light vibrating at various rates, mostly very, very fast. So I would say radiant luminosity is a good way to conceive of this, because it's somewhere, it's slightly subtler. It's related to, it's in that band, that broad band spectrum, but it's different than electromagnetic field. And I'll tell you why. It obeys your mind. Chi obeys your mind. This is how we're able to move it, right? The Taoist saying is, where the mind goes, the chi flows.
Moves the chi. Yeah.
You gotta link that up. Most people don't have a firm, established working understanding and that immediate relationship to their radiant body. It's kind of like teaching an atrophied limb, where I have an arm that I wasn't aware I even had. Now I have to kind of get it to move and work out my motor, my fine motor skills and things like this. You know, that's the case with linking up your conscious mind to what will be latent and impressionable etheric fields, right? So I refer to that in the book as a lesser conjunction of Sol and Luna. So I couch the entire thing in the allegories, formulas, and terms of alchemy, because ultimately Qigong, Tai Chi, all of this stuff comes out of Neidan, which is Taoist internal alchemy. And they have a very, very interesting and similar system to us, but their textual tradition it's it's difficult for Westerners, but there's more there that can be readily understood, I think, by people native to the culture who are involved in that. Whereas like alchemy is a total Western alchemy is a totally different thing. In terms of the textual tradition, I had a conversation with the alchemist Phoenix Aurelius, and we were talking about the Western alchemical textual tradition, and I think we referred to it as like a fever dream forest. You know, it's just all these strange allegories and images, and everybody thinks that they have the answer. You know, this is what this key means. Really, it's all dependent on where and when this stuff was written. Whereas there's a little bit more systemization because there's a protected tradition in the East of internal alchemy that manifests things like Qigong and Tai Chi, and even and especially a lot of people don't realize this. It's like the other side of the coin of martial arts. Like martial arts and Qigong are linked inextricably, you know, in the East.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. When I found out a long time ago that like there's 13 main postures in Tai Chi. I don't remember if I was telling you this, but the idea is that it links up the 8 trigrams of Bagua with the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. So you get this beautiful mixing of the Taoist with the Buddhists, and then you get it in this one grand ultimate system, which is what Tai Chi means. It's amazing.
Yeah. The reliance on the simple system of the Bagua, the 8 trigrams, is so sophisticated and elegant, and it's also ancient, that there's no way. I tried my best, but there's no way I could match that in terms of what I described in the book, in Aetheric Magic. Luckily, I am releasing another book this year within a tradition called Esoteric Mythology, where I do take people through the Bagua, the trigrams, and talk about Taoist cosmology. So, you know, I like to think of my body of work as all related. You know, it doesn't matter if they're on slightly different topics, they fill each other in. They kind of, you know, complete the profile.
Yeah, nice. I will say for everyone out there listening, Benabel Wen, I believe is her name. She has put out fantastic work in the I Ching and the Taoist.
I'll second that, Brandon.
You know, nice.
Well, I'm very familiar with Taoism. Just like Nick and I interviewed a Taoist priest from Cambodia, Chinese Cambodian. But like, yeah, I grew up around Taoism my whole life. Like I lived in Hong Kong. I've been around it. It's not like something totally foreign to me. Like, would I say I'm a Taoist or know that much textually? No. But am I comfortable culturally with it? Yes. And so like Benabel, it's very similar to Kabbalah, actually. You're supposed to translate your own version of I Ching when you turn 40. And so she did that from like Mandarin into English. And she also did that from you have to come up you have to come up with your own definitions, basically. But they have to refer to the classical tradition. So it's a scholarly endeavor, and she did that. So that's a very impressive just undertaking as a sort of like a Taoist magician or a Daosher or whatever you want to call it. So for sure, it's very impressive, and I think she would be a great guest. And I've reached out to her. Yeah. So shout out to Benabel if she wants to come on. Come on.
I agree.
Benabel was formative for a lot of the stuff that I did.
Nice.
She was the first, and I talk about her a lot on my shows and all sorts of stuff.
Forward, right?
I have to. No, Ivo Dominguez did the forward, but Benabel was the first person to read Aetheric Magic, because I had been talking to her back and forth. We had been, other than my editor, but I had been going back and forth with Benabel for months about this kind of stuff. She didn't really know. She didn't see the full picture until I sent her the proof, the unedited, the uncorrected proof for her to offer a blurb. And the response I got from her made me well up with tears. She said, you know, she said she thought it was unbelievable, and she did give a very good blurb. So, but the key thing, and I mention her work, I cite her work, I talk about her in the book, is that for me there is no scholar at the crossroads of esoteric philosophy and practice in any tradition that is doing it the way she is. So yeah, she is somebody of the highest caliber. I hope you guys get her on the show, and if she's here, tell her I said hello.
Nice, nice. Yeah, no, I saw her name pop up when I was looking at your book and stuff.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
One thing I did want to ask, I guess, like I've had a guy on called Leon Southgate, and he was like somebody who I think reduplicated Wilhelm Reich's experiment with orgone. And sometimes he would kind of consider that like almost like ether.
Yeah.
And like, so like, do you think that's, you will look at it that it's like kind of like in everything around us and it's everywhere.
Here's the thing is this, it was first discovered in the West in a major way at a time where like science was burgeoning, right? So really the first person to really do it and it exploded was Franz Anton Mesmer. Okay, he was the first one. He has a memoir that he wrote. It's very thin, very readable. It's called On the Discovery of Animal Magnetism. He was calling it electromagnetism, but really he called it was more so magnetic than it was electric. And he was a physician, and what he would do is he would do these things called like magnetic or mesmeric passes. And he would essentially render them in a state of what he called somnambulism. Okay, it's the word that you see constantly in the work of, Crowley era stuff. The Theosophical Society used that word, the somnambulistic state. He effectively coined this word, and right, somnambulism means you're asleep but walking around, like you're able to move but you're asleep. So Franz Anton Mesmer discovered hypnotism in the West. It used to be called mesmerism. Now we don't call it that anymore, but there's vestiges of it in our vernacular when you say, "Oh, he was mesmerized I was mesmerized by this," just like transfixed, right? So initially, that science, that technique was called mesmerism, to put somebody in a trance using magnetic passes. It really, really developed with people like Allan Kardec. Eliphas Levi was huge on it. He considered what Mesmer found to be what he called the azot, the magical agent. He said, this is what makes magic work, right? And Eliphas Levi, he wasn't a guy that really, it's very typical of the French style, even to the modern day, or at least into the 20th century. It's like this strange wordplay. I don't know if it's something to do with their language, but they conceal more than they reveal. And you're sitting there the whole time, and there's this kind of like tension that builds up, right? It just feels like too much foreplay, but there's this one particular tract, this very thin treatise that I found in New York City on 14th Street in a bookshop called Namaste Books, by Union Square. This was years ago. It's still there. The bookstore still there. Little tract translated by Arthur Edward Waite. It's called The Science of Hermes. And in this, I don't know, 30, 40 page little booklet, Eliphas Levi is explicit for the very first time. He's hyped up this whole thing with Azot, the magical agent, and the twin serpents of the astral light. He's speaking about it symbolically, and be careful, it can devour you, it can lead you to your death, but it's the operative agent of magic. So in this treatise, he defines it, and he says, Azoth, the great magical agent, is nothing less than magnetized electricity. So this is what, at this time period, this is what they were grafting things. They were trying to make it fit with the scientific vernacular. Now, I studied, chi theory in college, and even still they're trying to figure it out. They don't know that it's electromagnetic. They don't know that it's that it's related to bioluminosity. There are, if you read, I forget the name of the book. I have it right here on my shelf, but I don't want to get up and be rude. There's a book that I'll get in a minute, and it talks about how research was done to show how the chi meridians run along fascia lines in the body. They run almost exactly with the lines of fascia, the connective tissue throughout the body. So we're still trying to figure it out, but for a magician's purposes, it's it's not that it's unimportant to know. It's not enough to know. It's not enough to know what this is. You have to work with it. You have to work, and don't be so convinced that you must put it in this little box, because at the end of the day, who gives a shit? If it works, use it. Use it. You will develop a much more intimate relationship with this if you use it rather than try and explain it scientifically. But I get it. You know, in the modern West, that's the way our brains are hardwired. We've got all this programming telling us we have to find a scientific way to describe this, something rooted in materialism, so that I can feel good about it and I don't have to sound crazy. Meantime, you're prancing around in robes. You know, at this point, who gives a shit?
Well, even the guy who comes on my show that I've had on a few times about this stuff, I still think he's even like lost to his sense of like what the fuck he's even playing with.
Yeah.
But like what I was getting at is like, do you think this is something like it's some sort of like, I guess obviously with the book, I'm looking at it as like some sort of energy that's like within everything maybe around us, and we can actually tap into it and manipulate it and move, or, you know, move it to our will maybe.
Yeah. And I talk about it in terms of, right. And I said that I don't like to talk in scientific verbiage, but I'm going to utilize this here because I talk about it in the book. So the idea of the luminiferous ether that Nikola Tesla posited, really made popular. He said, and this is very Rosicrucian actually, because one of the main Rosicrucian maxims is ne quaquam vacuum, right? That's out of the Fama Fraternitatis, nowhere a void. There is nowhere a void. And so this idea that light travels these empty expanses was untenable. The light from the sun passing through the vacuum of space, that's an untenable idea in that framework. So what he really conceived of, and there's problems. There's still problems, and they don't teach you this, but there's still issues, like how light is able to refract through like glass, you know, not like a prism, like a water glass. There's all sorts of problems with the way that we conceive of light and its traveling. But the thing is, it's couched in such esoteric scientific language. It sounds very attractive. And meantime, nobody knows what the hell it really means unless you've gone through that priesthood training of, you know, become the new priesthood of, you know, this academic sort of scientific training. But the luminiferous ether basically says that there is no void, there is no vacuum, that there is this field. It's a field that is almost an empty fullness, and it contains everything inside of that field. And when things travel or appear to travel, what's really happening is that this field, which is latent until it is acted upon, is stimulated to produce a form of light, you know, which can be color, which can be, you know, just plain light. So it's all about stimulation of the ether. And this is effectively, this is how we understand the personal etheric field to work. That's how magicians do it. They tap into it with the mind and they pull forth from it. They extract forth from it what it is they need, whatever their purposes are. Now, we have a sophisticated languaging around this, which seems kind of goofy, but earth, air, fire, water, the 7 classical planets, and the 12 signs of the zodiac. All of those things right there, right? If you're going based off of the Sefer Yetzirah, they embody all of the creative potencies of the cosmos. So it seems like simplistic, but really what we're doing is we have our own sort of, you know, ideograms, these images that are associated with a whole continuity of ideas that we use in order to induce these things in our own personal etheric field that we call the sphere of sensation. So yes, I would say completely, it is this thing that is everywhere. It's, as you know, I love to quote Yoda, but you know, he basically, it's the same thing as the Force. It truly is, you know, and it's just so interesting to me that the path of the Jedi was to learn how to use this Force, you know. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. Yeah, and people should know that somebody put it in the chat, so they're really smart. Body Electric by Robert Becker is amazing for breaking all of that ideas down. It's just, yeah, exactly. It's fascinating. So going from the living organism into, and at the very end, proving how you can regenerate limbs by understanding understanding. That's a good book.
I just not to interrupt you, but this was the book I was talking about. It's called The Spark and the Machine. So Dr. Daniel Keown. This is the book that I was talking about with some of that. The subtitle is How the Science of Acupuncture Explains the Mysteries of Western Medicine. This is an invaluable book. I recommend it.
Nice.
You know, it's interesting when you think about it. Me and Judith had a mutual friend that was into acupuncture too, and he was in the OTO with us. Yeah.
And as I think it's most important is do kung fu and do magic, right? I mean, it's like, why not be a warrior magician in this world? And I think it's something I'm continually talking about with people. Is it's like, why not make your body into exactly what you want it to be? Because it's a body mind syzygy. So, understand the body, understand the mind, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole thing, is like, there's things that happen to you. And Brandon, I think you and I talked about it when I was on your podcast, but there are things that happen to you somatically when you begin to train in a system of martial arts that people would not assume, right? People think that you're going to get really kind of clunky and kind of just very like, whoa, jerky in your movements. And there is that in a certain type of kung fu, in a certain type of martial art. But really what's going on is like, you're actually becoming gentler. Like you're learning how to move like a swan, like a cat. You really are. You're using your body in a way that's very much like dance, and it doesn't wait for you to be on the dance floor. Like you're living your life like that. So that elegance and that flow contributes to the beauty and the harmony of the soul as well, which inhabits the body for a time.
Yeah. And thus in the idea of kung fu, right? It doesn't mean martial art, right? It means mastery through time, which is a common misconception.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, right? In like Chinese culture, they call it wushu. They don't call it kung fu. They can call anything that you've done and acquired incredible skill. It could be like sharpening pencils. If you've mastered it, that's kung fu. Mastery really is kung fu, but we use it as a generic term. They call it wushu, martial arts.
And interesting enough, even good kung fu has gone underground, and so there's wushu has now become taken over by the CCP and the operatic theatrics, and so it's really fascinating. Trust me, I'm deep into that.
Brandon, as someone
who
was a wushu person growing up, it's sports. Wushu is sports performance. It's not meant for
not
fighting,
a pushback,
right? Like so, Sancho, that's for physical contact. Like that's what the army trains in. But wushu is just for is to preserve classical forms.
Well, so there's a conspiracy out there that says they
over because as someone from the diaspora, Brandon, I'll just tell you that a lot of people from Hong Kong, Indonesia, Singapore, Taiwan, we all do wushu too as kids. Like my dad. I'm just saying it's not just like a CCP conspiracy that like someone might participate in their like cultural form, right? I just want to say that because
that would be kind of cool if we start talking about CCP conspiracies. It would be like a really interesting left turn, but I don't want to.
That's hilarious. I will state I'm not speaking strictly out of my caboose. There's a few teachers I have over in San Francisco, Chu Chi Ling being one of them, is master Hung Gar from that family, and there's an interesting differentiation, and I only connected due to the idea of Kung Fu having to go underground because in many times in its history, because of its ability to topple governments.
Yeah, Boxer Rebellion, really. Yeah. But that is really interesting. This idea of kung fu having to go underground, because if you remember, right, in like I think I want to say, and Jin can correct me, because I'm a little outside of my wheelhouse in what I'm about to say, but I think in the 19th and 18th centuries, or maybe it's the 19th and early 20th centuries, martial arts became really, to my understanding, it became associated with secret societies.
Yes. Yeah. That's it did,
Absolutely.
actually.
I mean, it's been associated with the triad since the beginning of the triad, and like it predates the Boxer Rebellion because it actually relates to what's called the Hakapunti Wars. Anyways, we won't get into this. It's a series of ethnic conflicts in southern China. But like Bagua was developed as a court martial arts system, like during the Qing dynasty, which is like the last Manchu dynasty. Everybody's seen like the last emperor of China. So Bagua was developed as like a bodyguard system of self-defense. So there's like the thing is like Chinese martial arts is very varied. And so after the Cultural Revolution, they actually systematized it. So then there's sport fighting, which is called wushu, as we said, wushu. And then there's full contact sport fighting, which is called sanshou, which includes all the martial arts, but they brought in like different people, like from Silat, like Eskrima from the Philippines, Krav Maga from like Israel, because like China has a defense agreement with Israel. Into that, but like they brought in all these people and they kind of systematized it with the Chinese masters, basically. And they said, what is going to be the best full contact thing? So you can see a lot of post 2001 Hong Kong films, like if you watch like I'm forgetting his name now. I think his name's Jing Li, or Jing Li, I think. Wu Jing. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember. But his films are all sanshou fighting. So you're right, Ike, is that they're all interconnected. Like it's all like part of the like the People's Liberation Army, the PLA, or the Triad. So you do see like a conflict, but in general, most people just differentiate. Like wushu is just like systematized. It's for competition, sport fighting, and then sanshou is like what the army does, and then all the other martial arts, that's more of a diaspora thing.
Yeah,
like Brandon is saying.
And it's what's the way that I kind of incorporate that into the book is actually right. There are postures, because that's just part of magic. It's part of qigong. It's part of any kind of energy work. But the thing is, I emphasize, certainly not to the exclusion of the magical. I mean, I would say half the book is like exercises, practices specifically towards magic. But I bring something into the discussion that I don't see really covered in any depth very often, and that is health. Because you can use this stuff to heal yourself, others, etc., so on and so forth. I have training, and I feel like everybody does now, but I got a pretty early training in Reiki under Joanna Crespo at the Open Center in New York City, probably over 10 years ago now, and she's fantastic. And then that was right before I started school for acupuncture and studying privately for qigong and martial arts. But that whole thing was about the way that it's distilled now, because the meridian theory, Taoist philosophy, Bagua, martial arts, it's all part of this holistic philosophy. But because and Benabel talks about this a lot, there are traditions of indigenous magic, which is, I mean, unbelievable forms of magic. But the way that we really inherit this stuff in the West is for health purposes, right? You go to school for acupuncture and you just so happen to learn Qigong. Qigong is also what they call, the fountain of life or the fountain of youth in terms of, these esoteric energy work. So there's a strong emphasis in this in health of the body, health of the mind, health of the emotions, health of the soul and spirit. And certainly the energetic body is not always healthy. Right. I mean, I teach people in this book, and so far, I mean, I've had an outstanding track record because I've been all over the country. I've been to London. I've been to California. I've been doing workshops out of this book and teaching people. And I've done it in Egypt. It's amazing to see someone's reaction the first time that they see their energetic body. Like, oh my God, it's real sort of thing. And look around like, can you see that? So, but you can see this stuff. And I do, there is it's not imaginal. There is an actual component of light to this, a radiant luminosity. And so, having worked on this for over a decade now, it's I'm able to see it pretty immediately. And you always see pictures of people's auras, right? And how it's like ovoid, egg shaped. I've probably seen 2 people in my entire life that have a completely fully developed, bounded, symmetrical aura. It's normally like it's patchy, it's splotchy, there are holes, and so that is a big part of Qigong. And this is the last piece I'll end on. In the Western tradition, particularly the Hellenistic tradition, the tradition of Greco-Roman Egypt and that whole swath, their entire brand of theurgy, right, which is magic applied to the development of the soul, their entire project was to perfect the luminous body, make it spherical, make it whole, make it strong. So we do have a tradition of this in the West. It's just that, again, our textual basis is, I would say, specifically regarding the luminous body, is fairly sparse and fragmentary, and there hasn't been a consistent tradition to, right? That's the whole interesting thing about wushu, is that it's built to transmit and preserve forms. Like we don't have that. The Golden Dawn is the closest thing we have to that, but it doesn't go all the way back. It goes back to 1888. That health component applies across the spectrum, and the book has plenty of that as regards the etheric field and the personal etheric body of the practitioner.
Nice. Yeah, I then have a question. Have you heard Damien Eccles talk about, because I listened to a lot of his podcasts for a while, but he spoke about how the aura around the body, what we're trying to do when perfected, obviously a tough word, it's the concentric circles of the great chain of being, that image from way back in the day, back in the ancient texts. You know which one I'm talking about? I can't. Yeah. But anyway, what do you think about that, for what he was saying about that?
Yeah, I mean, Damien's on point, man, because he lives it too. I talk to Damien regularly. He actually was he was one of the first people to really give my book props and kind of talk about it for his audience and stuff. And so we were going back and forth on that for a little while. And Damien, he really knows his stuff, because he's somebody. I think we're very akin in one very specific way, is that like whatever we do, we're going to do it to death. And like, it's all about immersion and it's all about living it. I do not want to come on here and talk and say all these fancy words if I can't actually do this shit. And very much so, he's like that. So he definitely knows what he's talking about. Now, currently, I'm working on a system. I'm working on a follow-up, a sequel to Aetheric Magic. It's called the title is tentatively called the Luminous Body, and it's going to get into the more advanced and esoteric practices. Aetheric Magic was an introduction to get people working, and you have every tool in that book to develop your skill to the point where you be ready for this second installment. But I'm working on a system that utilizes those concentric spheres. Instead of, say, something like the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, which that's what I had to use for the first book, because that's what a lot of Western magicians know. I used the verbiage of alchemy and the Tree of Life, and we can, if we have time, we can get into that tonight too, and give people a little bit of an overview of the nuts and bolts.
Nice. One thing I did want to ask.
One thing I may.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
I was going to say one thing I want to add here, like a lot of points, many good points. But one thing maybe nice to see as well is, again, we are always talking about the body itself, right? Like all the magic, everything is like from the inside, not necessarily the physical body. It can be as well, but the actual body. And it's interesting to see, for example, when you go into, you were talking about Kardec, from Mesmer, like Kardec and so on. In Spiritism, they're going to talk about ectoplasm. So again, this idea that you kind of have this energy that the people from the outside, the spirits or whatever, they need this ectoplasm to do stuff here, to like do the poltergeist stuff, or to even like interact and to kind of keep surviving and so on. Then you go into the ayahuasca traditions, and well, first of all, it's funny, you were talking about Star Wars, they call it the strength. In ayahuasca, they call the state that you get the strength, like in Portuguese, força. So again, that's really funny already. But they also say, because it kind of relates, at least nowadays, with a bit of like Umbanda and this kind of things, they always talk about like opening paths. So opening paths. And I was in a session, like a ritual this past days, and I had this in my mind, like where we are talking about paths, like literal paths in the body. Like we're literally talking about the endocrine system in the body. That's what's being opened. It's not some mystical, some door. Like that's literally it, or like the neuropaths in the brain and so on. So again, it's always talking about this energy of the body, and you can feel with the when you are in the state, let's say, of the entheogen, you can feel it. It's kind of like a kickstart, right? You can obviously do it with all the practices, like what probably there's all over Ike book, but with the thing, you just have like a kickstart, and you are able to see it, to feel it, to whatever, and it's just as amazing as it can get. The understanding this and understanding that, again, it's all already inside, and then the more you get coherence into what you are imagining, feeling, thinking, and doing, then the emotions, the more things realize, the more things work, and it's getting like faster and faster. I don't know if you guys feel like that as well, but I've been hearing with like peers and just like figuring out by paying attention to my own stuff, it's getting faster and faster. Like you imagine something, you think about it, you have the feeling, boom, it happens. Like it's next day things nowadays, what maybe used to take a couple weeks, months. And it's, again, you got to take control of the thing. You got to understand what you're doing. Otherwise you may go everywhere. So
yeah. And so the way that I like to talk about it is in terms of like the double-sided coin sort of thing, where the physical opening of the pathways, let's say like something like the limbic system, or the full, all of the endocrine system, there's certainly that happening. I would say also, though, there is no physical cause without a spiritual effect, a metaphysical effect, and vice versa. So when you are entering these spaces, it certainly is within. Do I think that it is within the physical organ of the brain? Absolutely not. I think it is within the personal mesocosm or microcosm. A mesocosm is I am the mediator between heaven and earth. I am the middle cosmos. This is big in that there are qigong movements of uniting heaven and earth, and there's a lot of that talk of the station of the human being is the bridge between those worlds, and that is our interface. Is our nervous system, is our endocrine system, it's everything we have. It's the physical body, it's the emotions, it's the energetic body. It's so as you're saying, you talk about it in terms of coherence. That's really what's happening, is that everything is kicking in and working in synchrony. Whereas in our modern world, it's a very challenging thing to have happen without you putting immense amounts of effort into it. There's so many things that are taking you, your attention, your focus, your connection to your body, and trying to rip all those things apart, separate them, sever them. And this is a movement towards the center. It's almost, you can think of it like a planet that has exploded. Okay. Now your job as the exploded planet is somehow to generate that central force of gravity that pulls all the pieces back together and heals what was formerly whole and is now, diffuse and disparate. So, but I think that's a really good point, Matt, because I get the question. Well, what is it doing the magic? Well, for me, it's, somebody will come to me that does like Goetic magic or some kind of, let's say magic of the PGM, Solomonic. They say, well, no, the spirits, I don't consecrate a talisman. The spirits consecrate it for me. And so then it's like, yeah, well, okay, so you're working on an exogenous level, which is fine because that's how you're interacting with the phenomena around you. But that doesn't mean that the energy that you're working with is not the operative mechanism, because at the end of the day, think of this. When a spirit comes, right? Spirit comes and to consecrate your talisman or to make a pact with you or something, does it open up the door and walk in and sit itself down and shake your hand the way I would if you came into my library and I sat you down? No, that's not how that happens. How it happens is by various methods. You can see, the mind of the eye can project something into the room. You could use fluid condensers, mirrors, incense smoke. There can be all sorts of tells and things like that. But at the end of the day, you are using what the great, teacher, and I would call this guy an ultimate magician, David Rankin. He uses the term gateway image. You're creating a gateway image that so that you can interact with what is a disembodied intelligence, which is another way of saying energy, right? If nothing were left of me but my consciousness, that's still a form of energy that can't be destroyed. It can only be transformed. So we are working with intelligent energies. We are working with spirits. There is an exogenous and an endogenous component to it. The key is you have to be that mediator. That's the whole point of this shit, is to get you to train to be the mediator. Do you have to buy etheric magic in order to do that? No. Do you have to get initiated by the Golden Dawn to do that? No. But I would say that you need some kind of system. You need somebody to teach you a system.
Yeah, nice. What's fascinating is when you say that, I know Heidegger or Husserl, all these phenomenologists probably would have never thought that this conversation would be happening, but it's one of those things where it's like, that is the phenomenological experience instead of the Cartesian, mechanistic, functionalistic, postmodern nonsense, which we've fallen into. And so the consciousness intending it upon itself, which is fascinating in and of itself.
Yeah. One of the things that I had to do, I gave this talk to, at Watkins in London. So obviously there's going to be a lot of magicians there, people that are fluent in this stuff. But I also gave it at like Philosophical Research Society, which is, it's not, you don't know who you're going to get in that. But that's not just a disparaging remark, but there's not a lot of magicians out in that neck of the woods that aren't associated with other things like music and modern, like you're saying, Cartesian rooted philosophy. So then how do you explain magic to them? And so there's obviously, right, Crowley's definition, which is a classic, which he derived from some of the early founders of the Golden Dawn. Dion Fortune took it, and causing change to occur in conformity with the will. Yes, absolutely, but that's anything, and Crowley addresses that. He says, like, everything is ultimately an act of magic. Yes. But is that what we're really talking about when we're talking about magic? No. So I found a way to define it that I'm going to just throw out there to you guys, and you could, toss it in the trash or throw it back at me. But for the purposes of explaining to these audiences what I meant by magic is I said it's where the phenomenology of consciousness and metaphysical causality intersect. It's where your mind, your consciousness, and metaphysical causality, you are causing things to happen, not because I went to the fountain and poured myself a drink of water. That's not how magic works. This is why it's called occultum. Occultum virtutes is the Latin that Agrippa used. Occultum related to oculus, in the eye. Occultum, hidden from the sight, qualities that are hidden from the sight, because this causality is nonlinear. It's metaphysical. It's not physical. You can't see why it happens. You will definitely see the delivery mechanism. But the fact that I did a Venusian ritual and then got a date later that day, it's like, come on. Some of these things defy statistical probability, so.
I actually have a legit question for Ike, but first let me give him a little shit because when David Rankin came on, I asked him the exact same question I asked you, Ike, the first time you came on about how to reconcile the outer three planets with Rahu Ketu, as well as on the Kabbalistic tree for Keter, Hokmah, and Dath. And he was actually very not only comfortable with my attributions, he actually used them. So I just want to say that. It wasn't just me coming up with that. But anyways, okay.
No, I mean, no respect. I hope you didn't think I was giving you shit for it. I don't work in that milieu.
I 100% understand. I just wanted to say that since you brought up David Rankin, I respect him very greatly, and I think he is a master magician. And I gave him the same thing. I didn't hold back. I just want to say that. So
well, David,
I respect you as much. I respect you as much, Ike. I was just
David is a man who is, first of all, brilliant. And he's also, I would consider David an extremely well-educated and cultured man. So, you know, I am not those things.
But I do want to ask you about something I really don't know anything about, which is the Egyptian sort of soul complexes. I know you have a whole section in the book about Ka soul. I don't know anything, like 0%. So anything you say will be completely new to me. I'm sure new for a lot of people listening as well. So if you just want to like give like a brief overview of what sort of the conceptualizations of those things are, and maybe even for like my monkey brain level, if you could, but I'll take intermediate as well. But I mean, I'm just saying that I don't know anything about it. So anything you say will be sort of first time and also enlightening.
Cool. Then I can bullshit you. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. So there were at least 9 parts of the self. Not all of them were the soul, but 9 parts of the totality, the holistic totality of the organism, at least at a minimum, in the ancient Egyptian system. We get this from various texts and the way that they describe the funerary texts and the way that they describe the dissolution of the whole the body, the shadow. Even your shadow leaves, like in Peter Pan. You know, so it's quite interesting. So the parts that are most relevant to the discussion of etheric magic, because I list the 9 and I give their definitions in the book. The ones that are the most relevant for etheric magic, I would say, are the Ba and the Ka. And these are respectively the soul, right? The soul is the Ba and the Ka is the double. It's the what they were conceiving of as kind of a wraith, a ghost of specifically Pharaoh, right? He was the only one who was thought to in the early kingdom. You know, they didn't think, it wasn't until you get the coffin texts, which I think is the second intermediate period, that there's this democratization of like, okay, everyone gets to live in eternity. You know, they thought it was just the Pharaoh for thousands of years. So the whole project was, okay, when Pharaoh's body dies, and that's effectively the anchor point that's holding all this shit together, when that dissolves, everything's going to get released. How do we guide that stuff? What do we do with that stuff to help him reach eternity? And the Ba was conceived of as a bird, a hawk, or a falcon, really, with the head of whoever had died, the facial features, the head of whoever had died. And it could, you know, soar aloft, which is a way of saying that, first of all, you know, it's the same thing in terms of like astral travel. The soul can leave and come back to the body, so on and so forth. But it's a way of talking about that, what I would say the inherent nature of levity in the soul being able to rise after death, whereas the energetic body, not necessarily. It needs to be, there are requirements to keep that thing going. Now, for people that have, you know, sometimes I'll get shit, and rightfully so. People will say, well, the term soul is not well defined. Well, I'm going to define the term soul for you according to the Hellenistic tradition, the Greco-Roman Egyptian tradition. The ancients of the world would have meant The totality of your interior experience is your soul, your thoughts, your emotions, your ideas, your fears, your subtle image, your personal available imagery, your memories. All of that is a part of your soul, which is why in Greek the word for soul is psyche, right? And that's the root of the word psychology. But they believed that all that continued on after the body died. That was virtually the only difference between our modern psychology and the soul, in a lot of ways. So really the Ka was how I introduced this idea. This has to do with what Matt was saying, kind of like about ectoplasm. So the whole premise of etheric magic is not so much, oh, I wanted to do an energy system. I wanted to make something. We already have it, but most magicians don't know that we're using it. You know, when you do something in the Golden Dawn, and I'm sure it's similar in the AA and OTO versions, you do the projection signs, you know, you're moving energy towards something. There's a reason why when you consecrate a talisman, whether that be a ring or something, you place your hand over it. Okay. It's you're projecting something outside of you, outside of your body. You are able to, that's once you've linked that up and you learn how to intelligently use it, you can extract it the way Matt was talking about how these spirits need to borrow the ectoplasm, to borrow the ether from other people in order to manifest. This is a huge part of like the theory of seances, which were the table turning events that were like, you know, everybody was freaking out about trying to explain with Kilner screens and all sorts of wacky shit. But this is effectively what we do in magic when we consecrate, you know, and the word spirit, spiritus in Latin, it means the same thing as pneuma or pneuma in Greek, or prana or chi or ruach, and it means that same thing. So again, there's that spirit versus energy connection. Now, there's a scholar that I referenced in the book, and she did some research, and I have the citation in there for anybody that wants to take a look at it. I'm not going to tell you the name because I want you to buy the book, but go check it out. She has a bit of research talking about how this term Heka, the Egyptian word for magic, the Egyptian god of magic, Heka, is related to the term Ka, this energy, this sort of wraithy double. And how the word Heka can be translated as using the Ka. So using the Ka, right? When we talk about how Eliphas Levi was talking about how the Azoth is the magical agent, it's what accomplishes the magic. We talk about talismanic consecration, you're sending the energy, this kind of stuff. There's some evidence, scholarly evidence, to support that this was also in a different way. I wouldn't say rudimentary, but I would say in a different way of conceiving of it than we might, but very similar in the ancient Egyptian and Hellenistic period as well. This idea of Heka, using the Ka, using what we understand now as the energetic body that remains when the soul leaves. Now, what did they do with the Ka? They put it in a statue and they fed it. What did I say before? When you can see this stuff, it's not imaginary. There is a very subtle physical component. We can't fully define it, but there is a physicality to it. So, particularly in the work of John Michael Greer, it's a funny title. And John's a lovely man, but the book Monsters is fucking dispensable to anybody that wants to learn about this stuff. He talks about all of this stuff, the ancient traditions of the Chinese traditions of hungry ghosts, the idea, the rudimentary ideas, the roots of where the concepts of vampirism, zombies come from. It all has to do with this etheric Ka, this double, this wraith-like thing that then needs to feed to stay alive, because it's associated with the physical body. This is what they call it, and that the more that thing is hungry and wants to stay alive after the soul leaves and the body dies, the more intrusive and intense its presence can be. And so for the pharaoh, they put it in a statue and they fed it and they treated it with royalty, like royalty, to keep his Ka alive. Now, in magic, that's not what I'm teaching people to do. That form of strange, wraith necromancy. It's just more so while you are alive, learning how to use that etheric energy in magic, which means there's 3 phases. The first is to link. You must link it. How you link with it? Link your conscious mind to it. Because until you've done that, it's completely latent and it's constantly receiving impressions. So you are much more impressionable before you link you will have thoughts that you thought were yours. You will be very, very susceptible to influence and manipulation. This is what they call personal magnetism, right? When somebody can manipulate and influence, they call that personal magnetism. It's not because people are magnetized to them. It comes from the idea of animal magnetism, that you can exert that force over somebody and render them latent, receptive. So the first precaution, the first hygienic measure is to link your mind to your etheric body. How do you do that? Well, I teach you. The first thing you have to do is learn to see it and feel it. And I give exercises and texts and all of that kind of stuff for not just the visual component, but the tactile component of being able to sense it and feel it. And again, I've done this in workshops, and I'm astounded at how successful it's been in person with groups of people I've never met before. So then the second part is to move and cultivate. That's Qigong, right? Is the cultivation of Qi in the certain centers of the body. Now, in Chinese medicine and Taoist, energy theory, you have 3 main centers, the Dantian, and they correspond to the cavities of your body. Okay, low Dantian down here, the middle Dantian. We also call these the Sanjiao, the triple burners. These are called the Haras, the diamonds or the Haras in Reiki in the Japanese energy system. So what do I correspond those 3 to? Salt, sulfur, and mercury. We're doing alchemy, okay? The sulfur component is in the upper Dantian. The salt obviously is in the low Dantian. That's called the cauldron of elixir. That's where all your vitality and life is. Longevity, those things. There's a point on the back. I think it's
Ming Men.
Yeah, Ming Men. I think it's Du 4, and it's right between the adrenals and slightly lower on the spine. The Ming Men translates to gate of the fire of life. So there's the salt, and then there's the mercury component. Why is mercury in the middle? A lot of Western esotericists are going to be confused. Mercury is the consciousness and language. It's like, oh, sit down for a second. Mercury is the mediator. Mercury is the medial point. Yeah. Okay. And we are always, no matter what, we're leading with, even in Western magic. What do you do when you do the middle pillar, or when you do God form work, or when you work the tree of life and the sphere of sensation? You always center the last thing you do, you center that energy into Ferret. It has to end here, because this is the medial space, and this is how to live heart forward. And they say in Chinese medicine, the Shen lives in the heart. The spirit of the person lives in the heart. It resides in the heart. You can see it in their eyes. The Shen is visible through their, the quality of their spirit is visible in their eyes, but it resides in the heart. So I conceive of effectively the cultivation, the movement and cultivation of this energy in these 3 main middle pillar power points. And then on top of that, I do use the tree of life in the sphere of sensation. And why? Because it's a readily available, ready-made. People know this stuff. It's great. It works well. It's easy to use. It's time-tested. We're moving and storing the energy and building it up based on those things. And then finally, the last piece is to project it. So you've linked up, you've learned how to move it, you've cultivated it in your sphere of sensation. Now you got to learn how to use this for magic. And that's probably like the last third of the book.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating. The that whole connection to then how you teach, how I teach Tai Chi, Qigong, and all these different integrations of things, because the last is understanding when somebody's coming up against you, how to use everything you just said to then move somebody. Because Tai Chi is not just the internal art, it's also the external warrior thing, where when used properly, you can be a badass wrestler at the same way, because if you can't be moved from your foundation, because all of those things are now linked up into that lower foundational dantian. It's great. Nice. Dot.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they call that rooting, right? Part of that is
rooting. Yeah.
Part of rooting. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so much that can be done. You want to work on vision work. You want to work on memory work. You want to work on willpower. You work with the Sulfur Center, but you're at the end, you want to work on physical health, energy, longevity. You work with the Salt Center. You're always centering everything in the middle, right? Because Mercury is the androgen. Mercury it has both sulfur and salt in it. That's what make it. Mercury is the combination. It's like, for anybody that plays music, if I were just to play, let's say on a guitar, I play a root and a fifth, just two notes, and I pluck them together. Those two notes are going to sound, and their vibrations are going to create what we call an overtone, a third note that I didn't play. I did not play that, but it emerges from the blending of the two notes I did play. It's the same thing with Mercury. Mercury is both. So it can be more of one, more of the other, but its main job is to be centered and to contain both and equalize them, equilibrate them. So yeah, there's a lot of that. There's rooting. There's I use it. I have postures that we use for scrying. It's pretty intense. Thing is, though, I do want to give credit where credit is due. They really pushed me. My editor, Heather Green at Llewellyn, was fantastic, and she really pushed me after the first read of the book to give everything I got. Put it all down. Give us more, because you're always a little hesitant. Should there be something for me like that? I don't, but at the end of the day, if you're going to do something like this and you're going to offer this to the world, you got to just go the full Monty. And on that, I know I'm dragging on a little bit here, but there is a funny story that I really want to tell. If you'll let me tell about how this book came about.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So in 2023, Ivo Dominguez Jr. invited me to the Sacred Space Between the World Conference, which is in Maryland. Okay, I'm speaking there again this year and this month, actually. Oh, wow. A good thing I reminded myself that I got to prepare. But I'm going there in like 14 days. But I went in 2023, and he only gave me a handful of days notice. He's like, look, I know this is short notice, but come on up if you can make it. So I had to ask off from work. I took a car up, got there late. So I didn't get to go to the first night of the presentations. I text Evo, all right, I'm going to my hotel room. I'll see you in the morning. I show up. I get there in the morning, and the first door has a line outside of it. And I go up and I look at the schedule, and it says 5 minutes to pitch a book idea to a Llewellyn editor. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't know this is what people did at conferences. You just sit down and you just listen to somebody, but they're always sourcing ideas. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do this. I'll get online. I hopped online, then the line starts dwindling. I'm getting closer to the door, and I realize I don't have an idea. Like, I just kind of jumped on this line. And that's me. If you ask my fiance Nicole, she'd be the first to tell you that I'm all about just, if somebody suggests we go for a swim, all the normal people go and they change into their bathing trunks, and I am fully clothed, like 100 yards out already, drowning. But so I jumped on, and I'm getting nervous because there's like one more person. I'm like, what the hell am I going to tell this person? And it just pops into my head like, hey, dummy, what about the stuff that you've been doing for like almost 10 years now with the Eastern and the Western stuff? Why don't you pitch this idea to her? And I came up with the title and everything, and I went in, I pitched the idea, and she's like, it sounds good. Send me your first chapter and an introduction. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I left that room and I went to the cafeteria and I wrote the first chapter and the introduction and I sent it to her. And then, and then the rest was history. And that was my first book deal. So to me, there's something synchronistic and providential about it too. So it's a very special project for me.
That's wild shit, man. Good for you.
Yeah, thanks.
And then because of the lack of fear, that may have never have happened if you had the fear of not getting online.
Well, and really, I blame Evo, which is why I asked him to write the forward, because like there's just something about him. He just knows which strings to pull. I don't know that he knows why, but he knows what to pull and when, and everything, is a true magician.
Nice.
I wanted to ask something since you briefly talked about it, and I think I saw something on Instagram once, maybe on a class of yours or something, like the usage of music in these kind of things. Like if maybe you have that on the book or something. But I find like music fascinating. So
there's a chapter again. That's because my editor was just kind of like, give us a chapter on sound, and okay, sure, let's do it. There are different tones and vowel and consonant combinations. I use primarily the introductory ones have more to do with the salt, sulfur, and mercury being the three sounds of the mother letters of the in the Sefer Yetzirah, right? So the sulfur center corresponds to the sibilants, which is that kind of sound. Then the salt center corresponds to, the letter mem and the element of water. That's silent. So it's more of a this kind of thing. And then air being in the middle. Mercury is as we say in the Golden Dawn, the tongue of balance betwixt them. So that's more of just an awe type of thing, getting to feel it in the chest. And part of this is developing the magical voice and getting these cavities to vibrate. They're cavities. And feeling that somatically, the levels of vibration and being able to do that. In terms of music, there's a lot. I'm wrapping up. We're doing our last session of the Music as Magic course. I did a 7-module course. The modules are, most of them were over 2.5 hours long. And I really run the gamut of musical applications in that. It will be available for anybody that wants to purchase it. I've recorded all of these. They come with presentation slides. They come with custom syllabuses that I write for each course. So if anybody's interested in that, reach out to me at ikebaker.com. There's a little chat widget on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and whatever you type in there will come to my personal inbox. So A, be nice, and B, if you want to know more about this particular course, write me there. And I've got another one coming up in March too.
His courses are amazing. I have taken 2 of them. Ike Baker's the man, and he goes super deep. So I'm telling you, live review, Ike's courses are awesome. Take it.
Thank you. Thanks. I'll send the money later.
Yeah. Yeah. 7,000, I think is.
Something I did want to ask you, Ike, that I noticed was some chapters in your book. And I thought that just from my own experience, my own practices, I thought it was something that's very important for me, or was important for me. I noticed you have stuff on breath work and visualizations.
Oh yeah.
Why do you include those in the book? Obviously.
Well, all of these words, chi, prana, ruach, spiritus, pneuma, they all mean breath. They also mean other things, but they all mean breath. Or wind, this kind of thing, vapor, etc., so on and so forth. But explicitly, spiritus, pneuma, all of these words, prana, this means breath. So why? Well, first of all, ether, this quintessence, this pure sort of, radiant luminosity that binds everything, that is sort of radiating off of our density, or really a lot of people think it's actually holding us together rather than radiating off of us. But that's a whole different conversation. They've always, in many traditions, it's always been related to air. It's been related to wind, and how you take it into your body is by breathing. And they say why, right? Because in the Golden Dawn, we say breath is the evidence of life, and that power, that inherent ether, was associated with this idea of enlivening things, right? Matter is dead in and of itself. It's inert. According to the classical worldview, the magical worldview, matter cannot animate itself. So what is this thing that animates it? Well, in various traditions, they say soul, but really spirit, pneuma, or as Anglophone pronunciation would be pneuma. This pneumatic substance enlivens everything. And in some systems, like there's a book called the Dayspring of Youth, and there's a bunch of stuff in the theosophical writings that talk about these practices of breathing in and extracting the prana from the air. Really, for me, I don't subscribe to that so much as I do this idea that it's more along the lines of like what I learned in Chan, which is Chinese version of Zen, effectively. Chan practices, meditative practices, is there is a direct relationship between the breath and the energy. And a lot of it, this is at the most basic way of conceiving it, is the way that one of the fundamental ways that you learn to link up and move the energy is by using the breath as a guide. Now, it's kind of like in the Golden Dawn where you do the lesser ritual of the pentagram and you trace the pentagrams, right? You're tracing the pentagrams to aid you in your visualization. To get, and Moina Mathers, she actually, you get a lot of modern practitioners in the Golden Dawn. They do very militaristic, kind of, but Mina Mathers actually taught her students, like Dion Fortune, when she was in the Alpha at Omega, to go very slowly, because the most important thing is the symmetry. So in the same way that you're training your mind by aid of this physical gesture, in using the breath, the fourfold breath and things like this, and belly breathing, hara breathing, dantian breath, and this kind of stuff, you're training your mind to move this energy. Eventually, you don't need to do that specific type of breathing all the time. But in my experience is that when I do the breath, I mean, it's immediate and it's much more powerful, So there is that synchronization between the mind, the breath, the undulations, right? I call that the personal somatic rhythm, the rhythm of your body, right? Because when you slow your breathing, your heart slows with it. Everything is coming down. Everything, your sympathetic nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system is kicking in, and now you can. Israel Regardie also talked about this at length. Like if you are anxious and you can't relax your body, your mind, like you're not going to be able to move that energy. Regardie was very much into thinking of this stuff as these energies, and that's why he wrote a book called The Art of Relaxation, because it's such an important part of magic, is to get everything to this very controlled and steady and still base level. So there's that. Now, in my experience, again, Jin could correct me, but in my experience, and I studied with a Thai practitioner, Qigong, when I was doing my personal studies. I had a few Chinese instructors as well in school, but they were kind of more of on a rotating basis. But the way that I learned it was that the first thing you learn is the breathing and the postures in Qigong. Okay, you learn how to move with the breath. You learn how to move very slowly, synchronously. You learn the forms and how they move and connect into each other, and you learn the names of these forms, right? Then at a certain point of development, you become what's called an inner door student. So that you're an outer door student for a while with these traditional guys. And they're not there to, for customer satisfaction, like it's not customer service here. It's like, you're going to learn what I tell you because you came and you sought me. And I like that a lot. I learn more from those people. So the inner door teachings, now, once you've mastered the posture, the breath, the movements, the flow, the forms, then you get the visualizations. And that's when you can do magic, because it's all of those things in concert with that is effectively magic. It's the same thing in the Western practice. So yeah, that is very topically why I included all that stuff. It's a good question, though. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for explaining.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Does anybody have any other questions? Before I keep going.
Yeah, of course. Ike, so then what is the true, with this book, what was your main, besides walking onto the line and all of a sudden you have a book deal, what was your main reason for this first one? Is it just because of that, or did you beforehand you were thinking about all these things and you're like, I've done this training here and now Western esoteric tradition, let's put it together into this book? And like, what is the real message you're trying to give to the people?
Well, it's just a product of what happened to me. I look at it like you play music. Well, the music you make and the music you put on an album, it's based off of the music you listened to, right? Like, so it's right in that way. You cannot create any new ingredients in music, in cooking. What you can do is you can take the ingredients and mix them together in your personal way, and they call that style, right? And so this is effectively what happened with the book. I suffered a really, really devastating life event that effectively it destroyed my life in a very short period of time, maybe like 3 months, and everything that I had built, which is good, right? Because it's a house of cards. It was horse shit. But at that point, that's when I decided to go back to the Golden Dawn that I had blown off and flaked out on. And at the same time, I had to get out of bartending. I didn't want to be touring anymore. I didn't want to be working nights, 4 o'clock in the morning in a bar in Manhattan. So I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was reading a book that somebody gave me. It was called Imagining the World into Existence. It's a book by Norman D. Ellis, who actually is a wonderful lady, and she's been on the podcast. I didn't know her back then, but there was an image in this book of somebody performing like what looked like massage. And I don't know why, but it just hit me like I have to help people. That's where I need to go, right? I served them alcohol. Now I have to serve them, in something that's going to heal them instead of pick your poison. So I went into body work and physiotherapy. It took me a little while to find my footing, figure out what I want to do. I didn't like the Western allopathic medical paradigm, so I went parts east, and I learned, Asian body work. I learned, I was in acupuncture. I went to clinic. I learned Chinese herbalism and all that stuff. Now, as I was doing that, I was initiating into the Golden Dawn, and I realized, hang on, these two things need each other. It was just total fluke. Like, I didn't think I was going to get the other side of the picture. It was just happened at that time. And I was like, wait, this is blowing my goddamn mind. Like, these are two things that when you have both of them, you have pretty much the whole picture. But they're bifurcated, especially in the West. We do not have a system of working with the energies that we claim to project in the West the way that they do. So I was just personally keeping this record of what I was doing. I mean, right here, these are all my fucking journals that I wrote in through the outer order, through college, everything, so I'm sitting there creating my own library, my own personal record, which is a library of the things that I was seeing, noticing, learning, combinations of techniques. And so I was just doing that. I was doing that. I was living that. I was putting it into practice. And so then when I hopped on that line, it was like hey, that's your big idea. That's been your project So why don't you just do that? You've written it in pencil, you know, put it into a book format.
Judith, did you have anything that you wanted to ask? Not to put you on the spot or anything. Sometimes.
No. I have. I don't actually. This is my introduction to Ike, so he's given me a lot to think about, and it's. I'm actually considering taking your course.
Awesome. Well, and that gives me an opportunity for anybody that's familiar with Pansoffers, right? Sam Robinson, Ian Gladwin. I'm sure some people out there will be familiar with Pansoffers. I've been reading Pansoffers for like 12, 15 years. I recently partnered with them, and I'm going to be offering with Pansoffers and Sam, I'm going to be teaching an Aetheric Magic course. I'm going to be doing a whole course on the book, and it's going to be in 6 modules. We haven't gone live with any of those materials, but I'm just putting it out there in the ether for everybody that might be interested specifically in learning what I'm talking about tonight.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking that up now. That's nice, man. Good for you.
Yeah, well, it's all Sam. You can thank Sam. he's really good at that, you know, bringing people into the fold.
So then, hey, what do you think? The world's getting pretty crazy there, Ike. Do you think that this is the way to balance out the nonsensical with the sensical? Most people think the occult isn't as sensical as I know we all do here. But there seems to be a lot of dark sorcery going on, and the only way to contrast that was with the light, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but the problem is that most people don't know what the fuck they're doing with the light. You know, it's like you think you have the light, and what you're really doing is you have a flame, and the flame is not the true light. You're just lighting shit on fire at this point. You know, like that's not the light. So right, and that's pure Play-Doh. Right. When they're sitting there, when it's the allegory of the cave, book 7 of the Republic, when they're sitting there and they're seeing the shadows on the wall, what's behind them? The false light, and it's fire.
Yeah.
The true light, you got to work for that true light. You got to climb all the way up that path, that ascent, that rough ascent under the overpass until finally you reach the light of day and the sun blinds you temporarily. That's the true light. You are fucking blind at first. And that is effectively what we all have to go through in order to fix the mess we're in. It's not we talked about this interface between the interior and the exterior. Like our exterior situations are a product of who we are. Okay. So a part of this can help with that in the creation of insight, in the focusing of your attention and your efforts into something systematized, something progressive, in terms of systematic, something you're getting better at, something you're working with, and it's working on you. But there are other ways to do that. I mean, for me, it was always initiation. But I understand now, after being out here, sticking my neck out here so people can rip my head off for 3 years, I understand that I didn't have the same experience of initiation that a lot of people who went through, you know, the same tradition did. I think that purely it was, again, this quixotic thing. I had no clue what the Golden Dawn was when I entered it. It was a fluke. I wanted to join a Kabbalah study group, and the guy told me we don't do that anymore, but we got this other meeting, and it was the Golden Dawn. And I was like, what do people think you're doing, like Harry Potter wand waving shit? And I totally flaked. But then when I went back, I didn't know anything about, I had no preconceptions. There wasn't all this. There weren't people like me out there giving everything away. You know, it was very difficult to know anything. So I went into that blind, and the fact that I wasn't trying to, you know, hump it into submission into what I wanted it to be, I was able to experience it, right? Like if you met a person and you went to coffee, or you went to dinner, you're on a date, and the whole time you're sitting there telling them who you think they are, you're not going to learn a thing about them. You're probably not going to get a second date. So effectively, this was what enabled me to have, I believe, the experience that I did have, which was utterly transformative. I'm virtually unrecognizable from the person I was before I went through initiation. And I think in some way you could do that in the Golden Dawn. You could do that with Etheric Magic. You could do that in the OTO. You could do that in, Amorc, Theosophy, because it's about what you are bringing to the table and how you are allowing yourself to be led.
Yeah, that, or you could do it through reading the Republic and learning how to philosophize and realizing how to actually walk out of the cave, because nobody can do it for you. And I think that's something that Socrates was, and Plato was, through Socrates' voice, was really getting at. Is that that's the idea of, at least my readings of, you can't bring the light back into the cave. And that's what people mistake, is that no matter where you're at in Malkuth or the cave, that's why it's a contrasting thing of, like, once you become a philosopher king, or once you witness the Platonic forms, it's truly that then you don't want to govern, because you're just really truly trying to learn how to govern yourself.
Well, and that's the thing. There's some verbiage there, specifically in the original Greek in the Republic. And I think people should read the Republic. But if you really want to learn how to do the dialectic and what the whole purpose of it is, you got to at least read the 12 dialogues of the Iamblichian curriculum as well. You're not going to get it from a single dialogue, especially the Republic, because it's the magnum opus. It contains all its major themes. It's exhaustive. But so you want to read the Republic with a Sherpa, somebody that's been up this mountain 7 or 8 times, maybe 100. But the main thing about the allegory of the cave is it's very interesting. Very interesting. He doesn't say that the prisoner, and that's what he calls them, prisoners, they're bound hand and foot, and their necks, their heads, they can't look away from the wall. He doesn't say that one escapes. He says that one is freed. Mm-hmm. He doesn't say by who or why. Mm-hmm. But then he says he is then shoved, pushed, and dragged up that. This is what I mean when allowing yourself to be led. Because in that instance, Socrates, I believe, Plato, through Socrates, talking about, and this is not going to be very popular, talking about providence. Providence. Something comes and takes the chains off of you. For me, my life was destroyed. I had no choice. Did I know what I was going in? No, I flaked on the Golden Dawn. Did I know what I was in? No, I jerked around for the first 3 months I was involved in the order. I had to be pushed, shoved, and dragged, you have to learn to allow yourself to be led. That's what it's something like a system like the Golden Dawn ultimately culminates in, right? That's the job of the adept at first. The Adeptus Minor is to rise and unite with your higher divine genius. And so that's what's leading you in a lot of this stuff, right? And we say it, the lamp of the hidden knowledge went before you, though it was unseen by thine eyes. The knowledge of the lamp of the hidden knowledge is always guiding you. It's always in front of you. You don't know why you're doing what you're doing, and if you dare take credit from it, you will fall soon. So you need to allow yourself to be led. And I think that that's a really powerful statement in the Republic, is that it's too much to do this yourself. We can't do it. Like the persona, Ike, who when he dies is dead, and this guy who, struggles with myriad things, self-esteem, laziness, physical health, eating too much, staying up too late. That guy's going to do this work? No, absolutely not. There's something that guy has to allow himself to be led through this work. You don't give yourself the marching orders. You learn ways to receive them. That's what the Golden Dawn does. Teaching you a way to receive your marching orders, and then you make sure that your ass follows suit. Put one foot in front of the other, and that's it. So I think that that's really important too, if we're talking about how to kind of fix, or I don't even think you can't fix what's going on. You have to transition and evolve into something else. There's no fixing this. It's just, we got to get through it, and I don't know. I truly, I can't say if we will get through it in my lifetime, but I always have hope, always.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Was there anything about this book that you would like to, at least still talk about or mention or leave us with before we start to wrap it up? What is it about this book that's different that you say, what the reason for this book, I guess, what stands out with this one than other people's?
Well, a lot of people are telling me that it's extremely easy to read, and like I put a shitload of information into this thing, as I always do. I can't help myself. I really can't help myself. I'm here to literally just vomit this stuff. And I give a lot of relevant contextual and historical stuff to point you in a direction to begin to understand this. Rather than like you go on YouTube and you're watching some guy tell you about, piezoelectricity and his crystals. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a much broader history of discussion in this, in learning what this is and using it. It's a huge history of both hemispheres, right? So I try and give that stuff and contextualize it for the reader. And it just so happened that it was my first book deal, but it wasn't the first book I wrote. So I got all the big words and fancy concepts out in the first book. It was a total cathartic, exercise. So this one, I was much more focused in the way that I wrote. And apparently it was very, very clear to a lot of people. I think that's one way it stands out. The other way is that nobody's ever done anything like that before. Aetheric, taken the Eastern tradition and what I learned about the Eastern tradition and brought it into the language, the symbol systems of the Hermetic Kabbalah of the West and Western alchemy. So it's really those two systems that they were the only doorways into getting this stuff into a specifically Western magical practice for people. To then it's just a very easy transition into using it magically. And I'd like to think I'm very thorough, but I leave enough room for you to I say, you don't like some of this stuff. Fine, great. Take it, what you do like, and apply it to the system that you currently work. Apply it. It's very applicable to everything that you're probably already doing. So there's that too, that it can be kind of a little a la carte. So yeah. Other than that, go on Amazon and read the reviews. I got some really good reviews. So.
Yeah, you do actually. Yeah. Oh, and you do have, I think it does mention, you do have like 50 lessons in there too as well, right?
Oh yeah. I've got exercises. There's a guided visualization. There is all sorts of stuff. It's Llewellyn. So the main thing, one of their central tenets is, you write about all the history and theory you want, but this has to focus on practice, which I love. I was on board with that from the beginning. So it's extremely practical. I would say, that's really it. It's a special book. It's getting translated into multiple languages at this point. So it's really been a wild ride with this particular book, but look out for maybe in 2 years, I think that'll be ready to, the luminous body. That's what I'm calling it for now. The follow-up, the sequel to it is, I'm going to do that with Llewellyn.
Awesome. Good for you, man.
So I expect to read the book and then be able to do telekinesis, pyrokinesis, right?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
By the way, I'm going to have you sign a liability waiver.
Yeah. Very nice. All right. I'll have everybody plug their shows again before we wrap it up here. Judith, what is going on, Judith? How are you? And you're muted.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Ike, it's been a pleasure. Actually, quite enlightening. I know you put it out in the ether about that course you're putting together. How soon do you think that might be out there for us to partake?
I want to say March.
Okay.
I'm going to be teaching 3 courses in March. I'm going to be teaching the Aetheric Magic course, which is going to be 6 modules right out of the book and with extra shit, that I didn't put in there. I'll be teaching a course called Techniques of Greco-Egyptian Theurgy. And that is in October of last year, I guided and facilitated a field immersive excursion through Upper and Lower Egypt with 20 participants. And I had spent a significant amount of time putting together and reconstructing to whatever degree was possible ancient theurgic ritual ceremonies and so all of the ritual techniques and the theory and the history that I put together for that actual like on-site 9-10 day excursion, that's going to be most of the content of that course. And then the final course I'm going to be doing, which is shorter, it's only 4 modules. It's going to be it's called Astrological Herbalism for Witches, Magicians, and Alchemists. So that's another book I got in the pipeline, and I'm going to be teaching a course on that stuff. So yeah, again, anybody that's interested, ikebaker.com, write to me and I'll get you signed up for everything.
Nice, man. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, but thank you again. Thank you for this. And you can catch me on the Loon on YouTube, as the Loon on YouTube and on X. This was a pleasure.
Oh yeah, it's great. And Jen, what is going on with the ninja?
What's up? Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Ike. Honestly, you're a great guest. Like legit, like super respect your knowledge base and just like how yeah, it's a bit syncretic, but that's kind of the time of that, exactly like what you said. It's like I always say, like, knowledge goes best together, because then only then can you see the contour of the truth. I kind of like that. That's very tantric, maybe, because we only have one primordial truth, but a lot of relative truth. So it makes sense for us. But regardless of your system, I think that you do have a lot of knowledge, and I greatly appreciate it. So thank you so much, and thank you, of course, Nick, boss, for inviting me. Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Brandon, of course, who is my buddy, for the record. He is my friend, but I am going to give him shit on the show at times, if I will. And then, of course, Matt, who is our webmaster as well as our YouTube social media coordinator for the Grey Lodge. Check out our show February 13th, Will as the Cause of Fire exposition on Gnostic Seth. My episodes with Sochki, I have a double episode coming up, and also with the Taoist priest that I forgot his name very temporarily. Matt reminded me, Master Gongsun, and I've got so many shows coming up. Nick, Ike, Brandon and I are working on something. I've just got so much going on. It's like a little overwhelming, but it's great. It's generative, and I'm in a good place. So everybody, thank you so much, and have a great year of the Fire Horse, because Chinese New Year is almost here, end of the month. So I think it'll be a welcome respite from the tumultuousness of the Year of the Snake. So thank you, appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming on. Always appreciate you joining us. And Brandon, what's going on, Vegas?
Hey, yo, yeah, nice. Amazing as always. Ike's the man. I don't know why he doesn't say it. Supposedly he had a new company, a business with his soap and all the herbs and stuff. So everyone should make sure they also buy his brilliant, he'll tell you, just go do it. Buy the book. Ike's the man. Magus and the Meaty here. Head over to my YouTube, because one of the remedies to a postmodern mechanical functional world is magic and kung fu. And I find that to be something everyone can do. So the only way to save the world is to save yourself. Head over to X, head over to Instagram. This crew is amazing. Shout out to Nick of the Occult Rejects. We are all here because of him. And thank you again for the evening. That's fantastic.
Thank you, sir. I always appreciate you joining us. And my man, Matt, what's going on, kid? Thank you very much for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you for calling. Always super nice, super great discussions here. And as always, you can find me as @MattMorrow19. That's going to be on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, maybe some other places, but those are the ones that I usually post the most. And like I said, just launched today. You can enter a social platform for esoteric and spiritual discourse. It's not about hosting the content that already exists, like here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, everywhere, but more so a discourse layer. So there's going to be a lot of cool stuff there. Just make sure to go to entergamu, that's GAMU.com, And yeah, in a few weeks, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff there. So
Awesome. Very nice. Congratulations. Congratulations. And last, Ike, please let everybody know where they can find all your stuff again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always great. Seriously.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about what you are putting together here and what you've done. So I'm just happy to be, in the mix anytime. Yeah, IkeBaker.com, IKEBAKER. That's where you can find most of my stuff. The channel on YouTube is Arcanum, ARCANVM. Thank you, Brandon, for mentioning the shop. Nicole will thank you as well. So I put that in the chat on YouTube. It's Prickle and Pine shop on Etsy, and yeah, we're shipping all over the place, and it's a lot of custom botanicals and soaps and salves and things like that. And I very occasionally will get in the mix and do if I have a nice election, right, astrological election, I'll do some astrologically timed, soaps corresponding to different planets and things like that. I don't consecrate them, because I'm not putting my chi in your soap so that you can rub it on yourself. It's not what I do. If you want to consecrate it, go ahead, but I'll just make the soap and send it to you, and Nicole will. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it. There's just so much to talk about. I get overwhelmed.
That's what friends are for.
Yeah, seriously. And I'm really looking forward to getting on here with Frater RC from a Hermetic podcast. And just a couple of days, I think Wednesday, we're going to talk about Golden Dawn, probably.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
For the second time.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
thanks.
second time. Yeah, thank you very much, man, for coming on. It's always great stuff, always great talks, and tons of information that I get to learn myself. Thank you, everybody in the chat. That's what's up. There was a lot of people here from the beginning to the end. They appreciate it. I love all the comments. I love all the stuff that was added and the questions if they're thrown in there. And that's why we go live. But that's the end of another Cold Rejects. Until the next one, everybody be well.